Antarctica is not just cold. It is the highest, driest, windiest, and one of the most remote places on Earth. That matters because in a place like that, a small mistake does not stay small for long. If something goes wrong, the weather can turn a normal problem into a rescue problem. And in Antarctica, a rescue problem can quickly become a survival problem. The first thing people underestimate is just how hostile the environment is. Near the coast, temperatures can still fall far below freezing. Far inland, they can drop far lower. Add high wind, and the cold starts pulling heat out of your body even faster. That is why Antarctic teams do not just think about temperature. They think about wind, exposure, clothing, and how long they can stay outside before the cold starts winning. Antarctica also creates a false sense of calm. When the sky is clear, the ice can look peaceful and endless, almost clean enough to trust. That is exactly why it is dangerous. The continent does not usually kill people with one dramatic event. It wears them down with visibility problems, cold stress, fatigue, and the kind of errors that happen when someone stays outside too long because they think they are almost done. Then there is the whiteout. A whiteout is not just bad visibility. It is the kind of light and snow condition that can erase shadows, landmarks, and even the horizon. When that happens, your brain loses the cues it uses to judge distance and direction. People can walk straight into danger without realizing they have drifted off course. That is why Antarctic training includes whiteout exercises and why navigation is treated like a survival skill, not a convenience. In that kind of environment, even simple movement gets complicated. People train with map and compass, route marking, radio check-ins, and strict travel procedures because the margin for error disappears fast. If a team gets separated or if one person drifts off the route, the problem is no longer just finding the destination. It is finding the person before weather and distance turn the situation into a rescue mission. Cold injuries are another huge risk. Frostbite can start with pain or redness, but it can also sneak up on you because the frozen skin goes numb. By the time you notice it yourself, the damage may already be serious. Hypothermia is even worse. Once the body starts losing heat faster than it can replace it, judgment slips, movement slows, and bad decisions get easier. That is why the basic first aid steps are so simple and so strict. Get into warmth, remove wet clothing, and treat the problem fast. And that is the part most people miss. Cold injury is not only about being out there too long, it is also about hands getting wet, sweat cooling under layers, gloves coming off for too long, or a person trying to push through one more task when their body is already telling them to stop. In Antarctica, prevention is usually more important than treatment, because treatment starts with getting warm, and getting warm may not be easy. Survival in Antarctica is also about the gear you trust before you ever step outside. Expeditioners train with emergency shelters, rope work, field communications, and camp survival for a reason. If the weather changes suddenly, shelter is not optional. It is the thing that buys you time. The same goes for clothing. You need layers, dry backups, and gear that still works when the wind is trying to strip every bit of heat away from you. That is why Antarctic field teams do so much practice before they ever go out for real. They rehearse tents, emergency shelters, stove use, communications, and navigation until the sequence is automatic. When conditions are bad, nobody wants to be thinking through the basics for the first time. They want muscle memory. They want the team to know where the kit is, who is responsible for what, and how to keep moving without wasting energy. The ground itself can be dangerous too. Antarctica is not a flat, safe white carpet. It hides crevasses, cracks, and unstable travel routes. That is why field teams practice glacier travel and crevasse rescue. In some areas, one wrong step is not a minor stumble. It is a fall into a problem that may be impossible to solve alone. And that is why Antarctic travel is so controlled. Crevasse rescue is not something you casually improvise. It takes rope systems, trained partners, and a plan. On the ice, every movement has to assume the terrain may change under you, because a surface that looks solid can still hide a gap you never saw coming. And then there is the reality of distance. In Antarctica, help is often thousands of kilometers away. That means self-reliance is not a motivational slogan. It is the operating principle. Teams train for search and rescue, remote communications, medical emergencies, and medevac planning, because nothing is close by. Even when a rescue is possible, it can depend on aircraft, ice runways, weather windows, and the kind of coordination that takes time. Sometimes the rescue itself becomes its own expedition. Runways have to be prepared, aircraft have to be positioned, and weather has to cooperate on both ends. That means survival is not just about what happens inside your body or in your tent. It is about logistics, fuel, coordination, and the ability of the whole system to keep working when Antarctica throws a delay at you. So what actually keeps people alive there? It is not toughness in the movie sense. It is discipline. It is checking the weather, turning back early, staying with your team, keeping your clothing dry, and respecting that Antarctica does not care how experienced you feel. The people who survive Antarctica are usually the ones who treat every task like it matters, because out there, it does. That is why expeditioners train for survival before they need it. They learn to spot danger early, to communicate clearly, and to treat every outside trip like a mission with consequences. In Antarctica, confidence is useful. Complacency is not. Survival in Antarctica is rarely decided in the storm. It is decided before the storm hits, by every choice you made while the sky was still clear.